The growth of big food companies has paralleled the growth of foods made and marketed toward children. Walk down the aisles at any grocery store and you'll see food that is marketed in a way that appeals to kids. We call it kid food. Some of it we know is unhealthy, right? But some of it is tricky. Some things have pictures of nature, say words like whole grain, or claim to have some vitamins. The problem is that even these healthy-looking kid foods are often full of preservatives, synthetic vitamins, and other artificial ingredients. Is this even a big deal? Is it really that important for kids to be eating healthy? Some would argue that it's not important, that they could just eat healthy as an adult if they want to. If you do think it's important for kids to eat healthy, then how do you know what's healthy? And how do you get your kids on board? These are all important questions to think through because as parents, we want to do what's best for our kids. So I brought a guest onto the show to help us think it through. Her name is Haley Scheich. She's the author of the kids' book, My Superhero Foods, and she's been asking and answering these questions for over a decade. Let's dive in. Welcome to the Daily Wellness Podcast, where you can learn about healthy living and be inspired to take the next step in your wellness journey. I have Haley Scheich with me. Thanks so much for joining me.
I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yes, it's my pleasure. I've just been loving following you on Instagram and learning from you. I think what you're doing is awesome. Some of your resources, I just shared with you. I just wish that I had when my kids were younger. I think that's just incredible what you're creating. And I would love to kind of hear your story. Like, how did you even get interested in healthy food?
Yeah, great. I would, I'd love to share. So, when I graduated college, I actually started at Pfizer. And so I worked there for 14 years. And
that's so interesting.
I know, so opposite to kind of like what I believe now.
Yeah.
Well, this was like, I just thought medicine was amazing. And it's like, any ailment, take a pill. And, that was kind of like what I thought you needed to do. And so it was into my Pfizer career and quite a few years into my career, I actually moved up to Ann Arbor, Michigan. And I'll always remember and be so grateful for my girlfriend that got me into yoga. So it's pretty like holistic up here. And there's, lots of yoga studios and, an amazing farmer's market and stuff. So it was just like waiting to happen, I think. The yoga and just really started to like tune into my body and loved the practice. I did like a lot of hot vinyasa and I would do like the early morning class. And like what I noticed is that what I ate made such a difference in my practice. And the more I got used to it and got in and started loving it, the more I started like prioritizing that to the point where it's like, okay, I don't need to go out too late the night before. I'm going to get some sleep and really going to like start eating different foods so that I really can like get into this practice and like maximize it. And so that's when I really started to learn the connection between what you eat and how you feel. And then from there, it was just kind of the spiral of like, what am I doing? So I also, in doing that, learned that when you do clean up your diet, and I'm sure we'll talk about like what that means to clean it up.
Yeah.
Like you really can clear up a lot of symptoms. So at the time, I was kind of struggling, if you will, with like headaches. I also felt bloated. I had a lot of brain fog, acne. And then all of a sudden, I just started eating more real whole foods and kind of noticed like, wow, this is going away. And so that made me really reflect at Pfizer to kind of think like, do we really need this medicine? Because if we make some really, in my opinion, simple changes to like, these behavior modifications, simple changes, prioritizing sleep and, changing the foods that we're eating and just, getting outside and slowing down and spending time in nature, a lot of these symptoms or these ailments will just kind of clear up on their own. And so for me, that became like a real kind of change of heart. And I'm like, I can no longer work for a company that's pushing a medicine when I know you really don't have to take a medicine in so many different cases.
Yeah,
And
that is so interesting.
yeah, it's like a full, like a 180, right? Or 360, however you want to say it.
Yeah.
And then I'm so grateful that I like understood this before I had kids, because man, being a mama has just changed me in so many different ways, including just my priorities. Like I was on my way to be like the CEO of Pfizer. I was like moving up the corporate ladder. And then, you have kids and you're like, whoa, priorities just completely change. And for me, teaching this information to my kids and really like nourishing them through food and sleep and nature and slowing down, all became incredible priorities. And it got to a point where it's like, wow, this makes a difference for kids too. And we really want to, my husband and I, like really want to share this information. How do we get this information kind of out there? And so that's where I find myself today, is kind of on this mission of like, in a really positive way, sharing all that I know, sharing all my experiences, and just really trying to help kids. Because the reality is you can't learn this information unless in some ways your parent or some sort of like person that's teaching you, guiding you has this information as well. And I really, yeah. And, I think kids need to know and deserve to know this wellness information. The way I say it is, why wait until we're in our 30s, 40s to realize what a difference the right foods can make, the right sleep, slowing down, spending time in nature, having a purpose. Those are all incredible. But what if instead of learning them in our 30s and 40s and having to like kind of undo a lot of the stuff that we've been conditioned to do, what if we just taught our kids that information at the start? And can you even imagine like growing up with that information, how kind of different we all might be?
Yes. Yeah. That's what I'm hoping for too. Just like changing that health story from our family, what's been passed down and the way we've just kind of always done things through generations, is to really introduce some powerful changes. That's a really beautiful story. And it's kind of cool to think about, like you look back on your story and you're like, oh, it makes sense now. I started eating better. I felt better. But in the moment when you don't know that already, you haven't experienced it already, it's like such a light bulb moment, like I remember when we just were at the very beginning of kind of our health journey. And one of the first things we did is started eating whole food, real food. And my digestion got so much better. And I remember thinking like, I didn't really know that it was bad to begin with. I just thought that the bloating and the gas and the constipation and all those things are just normal, I guess. And then when they cleared up, I'm like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point to hit on. Is you're right. Like we just assumed that this is just a normal way of life. It's normal to be tired. It's normal to feel headaches after we eat. Yeah, exactly. And it's not. It's actually not normal. So that's a great.
In your story, like you kind of shared like how that journey shifted to it being an important thing for not just you, but your children. And I love that. And I've also had that mindset shift for me, for our family. I think there's a lot of people in our culture today that don't understand the importance of food, or they might hear something about, helping kids eat healthy food, but they just don't really think it's important. I didn't eat healthy food growing up and I'm fine. Like, what are your thoughts about that? Is it really important at a young age to eat healthy food?
Yeah. Well, and then I think you're spot on. And then on top of that, it's like, what is healthy, right? There's all these different efforts, like eat this, don't eat this. This is good for you. This is bad for you.
True.
So it makes it so confusing. And then it's like, it kind of muddies the water. So it's like, you may think you actually are like really on this like great healthy eating path, and then come to find out you're not supposed to eat half the things you're eating. So it's so confusing. And yeah, and it's nuanced, I think. So I
guess there's two questions. Is healthy eating important for children, like at a young age? Is that something we should really prioritize? And then what is healthy?
Love it. Yes. So let's start with let's start back. Is healthy eating important for kids? I think absolutely. I think, in fact, that's probably the most critical time to prioritize, this healthy eating that we'll kind of talk about. And then to back up even more is like while you're working to become pregnant, and then while even you're pregnant, as you know, I mean, those are like the real critical times for both you and your partner. And I don't think a lot of people think about that either. I think there's this kind of like misconception out there of like, I'm pregnant, I can eat all the ice cream I want because I'm going to like put on weight anyways. And, I'm not blaming the person who thinks that, because that's what we're kind of like taught to think. So it's not your fault. It's not your fault. But I do think pregnancy, and then when our child is born, those first few years are, I think, extremely critical. Their bodies are really growing so rapidly. Their taste buds are developing. Their brains are growing. And so I would argue there probably isn't a more important time than to eat healthy for your kids. And that's just because of all the growth that's happening. If you think about, at a cellular level, like it's really the vitamins and the minerals and, the food that we're eating that's developing our teeth, how our teeth are going to like, the health of that, the health of our gut microbiome, which is like some people say is our second brain, and certainly immunity and just how tall we're going to get, or how, I think food goes into that, and how easily we're going to fight colds if we're around people with colds, all that stuff. So absolutely, I think that's the most critical time. And, unfortunately, in today's society with big food, you walk down like the baby aisle and you see everything that's processed. It's like, geared towards babies, and there's all these buzzwords of like vitamins and minerals, or whole grains, or, all this stuff that, again, we think is healthy, and we think we're doing good. But, all this stuff, or most of it, has things like natural flavors in it that, again, is messing up that taste bud development in little kids. And I believe actually like teaching them to prefer a fake flavor over the flavor of like real blueberries, or, a sweet potato or something like that. So,
yes, I agree. I could get on a soapbox about that. Like,
yeah. And
of big food companies toward children is criminal, to be honest.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's criminal. But a lot of people, to your point, don't know any better. And so, yes, I think when you decide to have children, if you're not already like prioritizing what you're feeding your family, that's the time to do it. And then to answer your second question, what is healthy food? I think it can get quite nuanced. The way that we kind of approach it in our family and what we like to teach is just the big differentiator is, where does the food come from? So if you believe in God, it's the food that God created. If you believe in nature, it's like the food that comes from nature. So, where does a strawberry come from? Well, it's, in the summer up here, it for like a month is all, unfortunately, but it grows on bushes, and you pick off the strawberry from the bush, and you pick off the strawberry, and that's what a fresh strawberry is, and that's where it comes from. On the flip side, like, where does cereal come from?
Right.
And, what about like the marshmallows and Lucky Charms? Like, where does that come from? And it comes from like this factory that's like taking these ingredients, real and not, and putting them together and trying to make a food and adding a flavor. So just, I think that could be the real simple differentiator is real food comes from nature. And I kind of get our kids thinking about that, I think is really important. And then the why behind it. The food that comes from nature is the food that has the most nutrients in it. A strawberry picked right that day is full of nutrients. It's full of things like vitamin C that helps our immunity, or, for example, milk that like comes right from the cow, is filled with so much good bacteria and enzymes that naturally just help our body break down the milk, versus, different alternatives and stuff like that. So in terms of healthy, I think nutrition is very personalized, and you kind of then start to work through of like, yeah, I can't, for whatever reason, tolerate asparagus. It makes me just feel bloated and like, if I eat Or I feel like it disrupts my sleep a little bit too, but my whole family loves asparagus and they can eat it. So you start to realize like kind of like what you can and cannot tolerate. But at the end of the day, I think it's as simple as like, where did the food come from? And the food in its least processed form is what's most real, is what's most nourishing for our bodies, and is what our bodies are designed to eat.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. I have said that to my kids so much. Like, is this a food that God made? And if yes, great. And if not, maybe we don't eat so much of it. Maybe we don't eat it very often. I'm not going to say that we eat like 100% perfectly, like wonderfully nutritious food all of the time, but we do pretty well. But, we do have times when we don't have treats, but just helping them recognize like, if this isn't a nutritious food, maybe we don't have it very often or we don't have very much of it, knowing that it's not going to make us feel very good.
Yeah. That's not what's going to help our body get big, tall, strong, fast, brains grow, whatever you want to say, whatever they're into. Yeah, I agree.
And so what are some of the bad effects of food? So if good food is like nourishing us, like what are some of the effects that we see, I guess, especially in children, since we're kind of talking about kiddos? What are some of the things that bad food does to their bodies?
Yeah. I think especially if we can like put it in kind of a non-intimidating, non-threatening way to kids and kind of teach them that at a young age, that's kind of the best. So in terms of like how we talk to our kids, it's just oftentimes it's funny, like if we go to, and I know we'll probably get into this, but if we go into a birthday party, for example, and there's a birthday cake and, maybe it's, the birthday cakes at the grocery store, at least what I've experienced, have like 60 different ingredients in them at least, and probably every different artificial food coloring in it. And so oftentimes, the kids, they may eat it and it's like, my belly hurts. And so I make sure in those moments that I connect it back. So what did you eat? Well, I had the birthday cake and I had this and that. Interesting. Okay, so when we bake at home, which we do a lot, do you get belly aches off of that food? No. Oh, okay. Interesting. And so I'm just kind of like planting the seed, not like preaching, not trying to like belabor a point, not trying to,
demonize the food. Yeah.
Just kind of be aware. And then in terms of like us as parents, this like processed food, ultra processed food, I would say that's what I label as kind of like bad food. Again, not saying we never eat it, but we just try to eat it in like little moderate. And yes. Okay. But this like bad ultra processed food, oftentimes is filled with ingredients that our body doesn't recognize and that isn't like pro growth, pro nourishment in our bodies. And so like a big one for me are all the artificial food dyes. I think the link is incredibly clear. It can't get any clearer in terms of the harm of these artificial food colors in our bodies and the detriment that it has on our children in terms of, the biggest one I think is probably behavior related.
Yeah.
And yet here it is, like in so many foods marketed to kids, it's beyond frustrating. It's like you said earlier, I believe it to be criminal as well. Another big one, again, that we kind of talked about, and we should both probably get on the soapbox, is the natural flavors. I think today this is the reason why kids aren't eating foods that come from nature, is because these natural flavors are designed to actually hijack their taste buds and taste better than real foods. And so what kid then is going to choose blueberries over, a cookie with natural flavors in it, designed better than blueberries? So I just think, and then in addition, you get these things like all these buzzwords on like the boxes where it's like, are made with these vitamins or contains these vitamins. And I don't think a lot of people realize those are synthetic vitamins. So these are very different, vastly different than like the vitamins that come from real food that God created. And these are actually could be, and many experts say these are harmful for us. They get stored in our tissues and just cause problems down the road. So,
so instead of being absorbed into our bodies and benefiting our body like a natural vitamin would, then it's doing the harm.
Yeah. And so that's that's the problem. And you essentially have, how many meals a day, how many opportunities to nourish your body with real food. And when we start choosing those ultra processed or bad foods over these real foods coming from nature, that's where I think we get into trouble, is because then that's what you fed your kid that day. And, in some cases, maybe they didn't get hardly any, real food. And over time, that starts to add up as we see it related to all different things. I mean, even today, the life expectancy of children for the first time, I believe, is shorter than that of adults, just because of these chronic diseases that I think are almost directly, in so many cases, linked to ultra foods make up the majority of our diets.
Absolutely. Like obesity is up, behavior disorders are up, mental illness in children is up, everything. Cancer rates in children is up, all of the things.
It's sad. And yet I mean, things like autism, ADHD, I don't when you look at these graphs and you see it all rising, I don't understand why that doesn't appear alarming to people. But I think it's just been minimized, right? I mean, big food is a huge industry. There's lots of money involved. So yeah, I love when I had my first son, we went and visited, we were like kind of looking around for pediatricians and stuff. And I love the pediatrician or the group that we found. And I asked him initially about like vaccines, what do you think about vaccines? And do you guys vaccinate? And I've heard all this stuff and, just kind of collecting information. And I was like, all the rises in this stuff like autism and ADHD and all this. And he said he believes it to be the food. He's like, it's stuff in our food. And I was like, okay. And yeah, I mean, that like hit home with me, of course. I believe that to be true. It's all that stuff in ultra processed foods that don't belong in our bodies, causing lots of problems.
Yeah. You used the word opportunities earlier, which I really like. I think could be a good word to use with kids too, as they get older, of course. Like you're not going to explain like, this is an opportunity to nourish your body to your toddler. You're just going to provide the nourishing food for your toddler. But as they get older, I mean, I have 3 teenagers now and one younger that's not a teenager yet. And so we're having all kinds of different conversations about food. So that has definitely changed for us over the years. It started out like you said, just helping them recognize like what came from nature, what did God make versus what is fake food, what's made by people or in a factory. And so those conversations definitely like helped shape their mindset. But now that they're older, they can definitely start to process things like thinking about a mealtime as an opportunity to nourish their body. They're playing sports, they're going to the gym and things like that. And they are recognizing that their body needs different things, kind of like the experience you had with yoga. If I'm going to eat this, I'm not going to feel very good. I'm not going to perform well. And so I think that word opportunity could be a good word to use with kids too, as they get a little bit older. This is an opportunity to nourish and fuel your body. What do you think your body needs right now? And help them think through the options of what they could put into their body for a mealtime.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that's kind of like what our vision was for our first book that we wrote, is that linking foods to like powers. So
yeah.
Well, avocados are full of like good, healthy, we don't even give in that they're monounsaturated fat, but just like good, healthy fats that give us lots of energy and that actually like fuel our brain, because most of our brain is fat. So you have art tomorrow and you want to be really creative. And so we want to like really nourish your brain. So let's eat an avocado so that we can feed your brain. Or like, my son was like really into tag, I think when he was like 4 or 5, and it's like grass-fed meat, there's so much protein in there and B vitamins, and that's going to nourish your muscles and make you run super fast. And so, he'd be like, Mama, can we have some grass-fed meat tonight? Because I want to really I don't want anyone to catch me at tag.
I love that.
With like the powers for the kids, even at like a young age, like 4, then they start to like understand that like olives, another healthy fat one. It's like good for your brain. And so then they started to kind of like request that food that the power was linked to, because they knew, I think in our book, it's like avocados help you jump higher. And at some point, it's like the high five and they want to reach it. It's like, I'm not reaching it. I need to have an avocado tonight. But that simple stuff, like, I think it resonates with kids because there's always something they want to do. Whatever it is that's important to them. I think you can kind of fit food into like how it's going to help them.
Yeah. What are some of the key nutrients that parents should try to fit into their kids' diet?
That's a good question. I think for me, what I try to do, instead of like really focusing on like making sure I hit every nutrient, is just realizing that you're going to probably do that most likely if you're eating real foods and if you're doing like a well-balanced diet.
Yeah.
You just try to like, I think a lot of times like maybe a healthy fat is often forgot about, maybe even at like lunchtime or something. So just trying to get like some sort of clean protein, whether that's like Greek yogurt or, local chicken sausage or, whatever, if you can get some sort of like local meat, or if not just like, at the grocery store, some sort of like kind of clean protein, some sort of like nourishing carbs. So we love fruit in our family. I try to like kind of include that at each meal if I can, at least breakfast and lunch for sure, but we eat a lot of fruit at dinner too. And then that like healthy fat. So, whether it's like making sure we're getting the egg yolks in, or, butter or some tallow, whatever that is, but really trying to include all of that. So your protein, your like nourishing carb, and then a healthy fat. I mean, and the thing is, people don't even, I don't think about it, but you can even make like, for example, your own pancakes. And like our pancakes that we make at home a lot that the kids love have things like raw honey in them, raw milk in it. It has eggs. We do use flour. We use an organic flour, butter. All that stuff is so good. And so if you have a kid that maybe doesn't eat eggs, scrambled eggs, like you can still get them in pancakes and stuff too. And that is so different than the pancake mix that you're going to find at the store.
Oh my goodness.
I don't even know if that can count as a food.
Yeah, you're right. Totally different. I think that is another like good realization is a lot of the foods that your kids may like, there's probably a good alternative that you can make at home that's so much more like nutrient dense and doesn't have all the preservatives and the natural flavors and things like that just unnecessary.
Yeah. I mean, even like, for example, popsicles. We made popsicles the other day and we just kind of threw some things together. But I got in like yogurt. I actually put in some, I blended it up. I put in some egg yolks in there. I was like, ooh. But then we did like frozen strawberries. We did some honey. But yeah, I mean, and they loved them because it's just like, it's a popsicle.
Yeah, especially for the summer, right?
Yeah. So you're absolutely right. I think a lot of stuff that we see at the store, we can actually make it ourselves. And I think make it really good. And they love it. They'll love it. Yeah.
I think in your books, you call the real food like superhero foods, right?
Yeah.
Can you kind of tell us a little bit about your books?
Yeah, so we have two so far. We have a third one coming that we're super excited about. But the first one is just called My Superhero Foods. And so we have the two, it's like a brother and sister, and it's actually my first two. But I put them under like alias names and stuff, but it kind of looks like them, so it's fun. But they're just like, they go throughout the day, and we try to prioritize like them baking in the kitchen, like a family dinner. Most of the scenes are like outside. So we try to get in all those elements because at least what I found is that my kids love books and they love the pictures. Like it's like you read the book and then you're on a page and they're just stay on that page for just minutes, just like looking at all of the details. And that was the fun part for me is our illustrator is incredible. Liz, and she already gets it anyway. So she'd put in those fun details, but then I may be like, can we put like a bird flying with like a worm in the mouth? Because that's what the kids are going to notice.
Yeah.
So it's like they're outside and they go through kind of their entire day. And then throughout the day, they're just eating all these superhero foods. And it's just like really kind of light and just like how do we want it like kind of whimsical. And they could just go through and it's just very like non-pushy. But it's like, oh, there's an avocado tree right there. Oh, they have avocado on their salad. Or like, oh, they're making their scrambled eggs. And then it just introduces what we believe to be the superhero foods, which I would change some stuff now. There's definitely some stuff I'd like to add to the book. So it's like one of those things where you're like, But we believe to be, everything in there is superhero food. And then, like I mentioned earlier, we just link it to a different power. So it might be like they're eating seasonal fruit, and then they're playing a soccer game, and like that fruit gave them some energy to play soccer.
I love that. I love that it gives them a visual too. I mean, we don't really watch much TV with commercials, but I remember growing up watching, kids eat bowls of cereal on TV and all the ice cream and the things like that. So to have like a positive image of kids eating real food in their memory, that they're going to want to mimic and be like, oh, it's like the book,
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's a great point. Thank you. And then the sleep book, we just we read a lot of books. There's one book in particular. I think it's called Why We Sleep. I can't remember, but it's by Matthew Walker, who's like the sleep guru. And what we wanted to do is just incorporate as many sleep tips as we could into the book to kind of, again, teach those at an early age, and then also like teach the kids the benefit of sleep, so that it's not a fight every night, but rather it's like your kids understand, like, we're going to sleep and there's a lot of good stuff.
Another opportunity.
Exactly. And so that's kind of like the things you can do throughout the day to set yourself up for good sleep at night. And what I love about this book is the feedback we got a lot is that a lot of parents learn things from the book. So they're like, oh my God, I got so many good tips from that.
Oh, I think that'll happen with both books for sure.
Yeah. And then our third book, we were going to do movement because it's kind of like, those are kind of like real wellness pillars that I think should be established early on. Is like nourishing food and quality sleep, and then obviously like getting outside and moving. But then we were like, maybe boring, and I don't know. So we kind of put that on the back burner, and we thought another one that's super important. I find it incredibly relevant right now because my son, he's my oldest and he's 8, is like his mindset, like how he is, because I feel like he's like approachy or like maybe trying to be a little bit of a perfectionist, which I want to kind of, there's some good in that, but I also just want to like, give him the room to just like, make mistakes, and we actually want to make mistakes because that's how we grow. So anyways, our third is going to be on mindset, and we're like going to change up the format a little bit, and I'm really excited about that one. I'm super excited about that.
When do you think that one will come out?
We are so making a book is super expensive, and like printing the book and stuff. So yeah, we're just kind of like saving up for that one because it's a big chunk to print a bunch of copies. And so we're thinking like probably by end of the year, first of next year.
Exciting.
Come out. Yeah.
Congrats to you guys. That's awesome. Keep going.
Thank you.
So for parents that might be listening thinking, all right, this is something I'd really like to start doing in my home, like where should they start?
So I think a great place to start is just cooking at home. Like maybe you even like challenge yourself to say, for the next month, I'm just going to cook all the meals at home. Because I think a lot happens in doing that. It's also, you're starting to form a habit. We know that like pretty much anything you cook at home, well, for the most part, is going to be healthier than something you get at a restaurant. Probably if you're getting at the restaurant, the quality of the food is probably low. It's cooked in seed oils, of course, just so pro-inflammatory. A lot of other host of issues I have with seed oils. A lot of people have with seed oils. But I think that's a good place to start, and to just do a little plug of like I love writing children's books, but then I'm also like, to further this mission of like, how do we help parents that are on board and they're like, okay, but we both parents work, or I'm a single parent and I just don't have the time. There's a million things going on. It's stressful. Like I want to do this, but make it easy. So we actually came up with a breakfast guide, and it's a 28-day guide. It gives you a shopping list of like staples for the whole month. It talks through like trusted brands, or like when you're at the grocery store, look, for example, for like sprouted oats, because sprouted oats that are organic, number one, aren't sprayed with pesticides, and two, like they're just easier because they're sprouted for your body to digest them. So we give you little tips like that. But then it's just 28 days of meals, and you do a little prep on Sunday, which we walk you through in the book. And then essentially like come that morning, you're getting a very nourishing, well-balanced, delicious meal on your plate for your kids in like 2 to 5 minutes. Sometimes there's like pancakes each week, a different recipe for that. Sometimes that takes a little bit longer, especially if you don't have a skillet, which I know. But for the most part, it's like 2 to 5 minutes. And you've got this amazing breakfast that is 100 times better than, Lucky Charms that you're giving to your kids. So we have that resource to help. But in general, I think just doing that challenge, like cook at home for a full month, pack your kids' lunch. In that include lots of like fruit cut up and veggies cut up and, crackers and ghee, or, I love these Paleo Valley beef sticks. So
Me too.
yeah. So it's like I put that in there sometimes, or like roasted chickpeas, with some tallow, different spices, or pumpkin seeds, whatever it is, like whole foods. So you're packing the lunch. And then dinner, I argue that even something like organic pasta, a good quality extra virgin olive oil, some raw Parmesan cheese, and a side of like snap peas or olives is 10 times better than like anything processed that you might buy at the store or anything like a restaurant. So like you can do easy dinners each night too, like spaghetti or tacos. My kids will like love to make the guacamole, and we'll do like chips and we'll melt like cheese on it, and they'll dip that in, hamburgers, or, there's so many different ideas that you could do for quick, easy dinners as well. And so to do a month of that, I think a number of things are going to happen. Some habits are going to be formed. You're going to realize like, okay, when I prioritize this is easier than what I thought. And you're going to notice some huge health changes.
That's what I was thinking. Like, it's long enough to notice some changes physically in you and your kids that's going to be motivating to keep going.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel like that would be a really like kind of fun challenge and a place to start that isn't going to be too overwhelming, where it's like, don't eat this anymore, or don't eat this, or, anything too extreme.
Yeah, so good. And so good to model for your kids, just like eating at home, cooking at home, buying real food, all of those things, just to try and start normalizing that for your family.
Yeah, that's a wonderful point. You're right.
All your books and the resources, I'm going to link them in the show notes. So anybody who's wondering how to get those, just check the show notes, y'all. You can grab those. We did kind of touch on it a little bit, just when you're out at events, like when you're at a birthday party, it's going to be 4th of July before we know it. Like even school food, or, when you're out with friends at a restaurant, like how do you kind of navigate some of those situations?
I actually just let it go. I just kind of take a deep breath and let whatever happens while we're out happen, for the most part, with a few caveats. I think the first caveat is while my kids are like 3 and under, I protect them from that stuff. And what I mean by that is, like, for example, like my 2-year-old, sometimes she'll go to like a nanny, and they had like a little birthday party, and I just baked her some banana bread and sent her with her that day and said, can she have this instead of the cake? And she didn't care. She loves banana bread. You know what I mean? I had some syrup in it, and it's like, she's like, yes, I love this. I get banana bread today. So, when they're under 3, I just don't allow it. If we're at a birthday party, I may make like granola bars, or just, and I did that for all the kids. But after kind of like maybe, you get in like 4, 5, 6, and then above, it's one of those things where it's like, I think you may cause more anxiety and like just put more stress on the kids, at least for me, if I'm like constantly like watching what they're eating. So if we're like at a birthday party and then they're old enough to be like, well, why is this different from that? And then it's like, maybe, they feel shy or silly in front of their friends, or so I don't want to put them in a situation like that. So I'm cringing in the background.
Yeah.
Taking a breath, and I'm like, okay, this is one off. And I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
I think at school, that becomes a little bit trickier. I always pack their lunch. I've heard stories, like a lot of people will write in about like maybe a daycare that's like on a daily basis giving, goldfish crackers, or, something like that. For me, I couldn't do that. I'd have to just, whether it's like, I think there's a spectrum. You could just straight up be like, my kid has an allergy, you can't eat it. Or whether you want to take it to the other end, where it's like, you really go in and you try to educate them as to why this isn't a great snack, and maybe you can offer different ideas. Again, like, you don't want to offend anyone either. So that becomes a little bit trickier. But like for me, if it's on a regular basis, I wouldn't allow that.
Yeah, you'd find a way around it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I'd find a way around it. The one-offs at school, the school parties and stuff, again, I'm okay with that. I try to volunteer as much as I can. So like I can bring in the stuff. I'm like,
Yes.
what? Like, artificial color filled, whatever, for their bodies. Because I do notice a difference. If they come home and they're like, they've had all that ultra processed food with all those awful ingredients, like they can't even regulate their bodies. They're like, they just are 100% different than who they really are. So I try to like something as simple as like, that lesser evil popcorn that's made with unrefined oil and pink Himalayan salt and popcorn. It's like that, and oranges are a wonderful snack. Kids love that. Yeah. So I'll maybe volunteer to bring in stuff like that as often as I can to kind of minimize the other stuff that's brought in. And then there are some cases, like for example, my son, he just started soccer last year. And the last 2 games of the season, it just happened, the coach brought in stuff. And it's like one time was like this fruit by the foot or something like that. And it's like this bright pink. And I'm like, oh. So thankfully, my son actually was like, no, I'll just pass. I didn't feel like it, Mom. I just passed. But then the second time was like store-bought cupcakes. And like he's doing this with his own money. Then, it's actually a very generous act, I think. But I feel comfortable enough with him to just maybe like next year he's going to be the coach again, that I may just be like, hey, can I help you pick out snacks? And, we're really trying to prioritize healthy eating. And so, it's opportunity for all the kids to get a healthier snack. And then I may like volunteer to bring them for him or something like that. So I think it's a little bit nuanced, but in general, when we're out, those one-off occasions, I just let it be.
Yeah, I kind of am the same, especially as they've gotten older. And sometimes they'll recognize the same, like, I'm not going to eat that because I know I'm not going to feel great. Or they'll just eat a little bit and then they'll come home and get, more of dinner or more of a snack, that they know is going to be better for them. And because they didn't want to overeat on what was provided, but they, just ate enough to be satisfied in the moment and then moved on. So your kids will start to, if they have this education, they will start to make choices that are good for them on their own. Not perfect, and that's okay. But overall, like they really can learn to like choose like good choices, which is really encouraging to see when they do that. Oh, one other thing that I try to do is the only time I like give input on events and stuff like that is if the kids are like having multiple parties in a row. So sometimes it'll be like, if we have 4 Christmas parties in a row, or we have 3 birthdays that all lined up really close together. So I'll just talk about that beforehand, because sometimes they might not even realize like you're going to this birthday party, but tomorrow you have another one, and the day after that you have another one. And so just keep that in mind, like when you're picking your food, that you're going to have 3 days of this. And so you may not feel great, if you eat this for 3 days. So just helping them, like, because sometimes they don't recognize the schedule,
Yeah, no, I think that's awesome.
Well, do you have any other like parting words before I ask my final 3 questions?
I love those questions. For anyone out there, for any parents out there that are like, they're like at that place where they're motivated to be like, okay, yep, now's the time. We're going to really start. I think, start small, and like small really can add up, and small is huge. Even if it's like 1 meal a day that you're cooking at home, that makes a difference. Even if it's like one thing that you're like starting to sub out, you're not getting the sugar-filled yogurt at the store individually, but you're getting the big pack and you're putting raw honey and maybe some chocolate chips on it or something like that. Like those differences add up. And so congratulations to you for like wanting to make those changes and for starting to make those changes. And it can be overwhelming, but I think little things will add up over time. And the biggest part is that you'll see that in your kids. And I think one day they'll look back and they'll be like, thank you so much for, making these changes for me. So hopefully
we're cheering for you, parents.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So my final 3 questions. The first one is, what is one healthy living resource you would recommend?
Okay, so I thought about this for a while, and there's a ton, but I wanted to kind of be hoping to be a little bit more unique and maybe something people haven't said in the past. I feel like, I don't know about you, but like I am really on this raw milk kick, and we're going to talk about raw milk like all next month on like our social media page. And we've been having it now, drinking it now for like a couple of years. I've noticed huge benefits, huge changes, huge benefits. I feel like my youngest, like she just doesn't get sick that much. And I swear it's the raw milk. And so I think it's just the superfood. We didn't include it in our book. I wish we would have. And I think it's just like this thing that a lot of people don't know about or they're scared about. But there is this huge movement. So I think a resource that I love that I share a lot is rawmilkfinder.org. Horse.com. It's one of those two. But if you Google milk finder.
Yeah. I'll make sure I put the right one in the link. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. And then what it does is it just shows you local to you, like who is selling raw milk. And of course you go there and you check out the farm and you make sure it's clean. But I just think it's wonderful because you're supporting local farmers and you're getting this like liquid gold, like we like to call it, that's just been incredible to all of our family's health. And I just wish more people knew about the benefits of raw milk.
Yeah, that is a good one. Yeah, we have, thankfully, I feel like we went back in like a few decades because I actually have someone that delivers raw milk to my front door. So I feel like I have a milkman.
That's incredible. That's the key is like go back to how your great grandparents ate. Like you can't do wrong with that, I don't think.
Yeah, you'd be way better off for sure. Mm-hmm. What's one of your favorite healthy snacks?
We make homemade ice cream. Speaking of raw milk, we make homemade ice cream and it's so good. And it's like, it's simple ingredients. We use egg yolks, raw milk, raw cream if we can get it. That one's tricky, but we like the Kelowna brand because it's like nice process, I think, of the cream, their whipping cream. And then we put maple syrup and like vanilla in it, or we'll sometimes do like peppermint oil with some chocolate chips. But I feel like if it's a dinner and my kids just didn't eat well, like I'm so happy to like make up some ice cream. And we don't make it all the time because it's expensive, but so nourishing that it's like, I'm okay if that's their actual dinner.
It's not amazing you can say, here's nourishing ice cream for
we would have thought. So, but I love it too. I especially love it when we put the peppermint oil in and the chocolate chips. So
sounds fancy.
So fun. And a little fancy. Yeah.
Who would you love to see as a guest on the Daily Wellness Podcast?
Okay. So I thought about this too. And I'm trying to think outside the box. I feel like having a farmer on would be really cool. A farmer that like maybe isn't even like certified organic, but that can speak to how they're using organic farming practices. They're using like regenerative farming, they're rotating the crops and stuff, and just speak to like soil health. They really out about that. And then just like how maybe they love like, I feel like a lot of local farms around here like love for the kids to come out, and like that can be like your thing for the weekend. Like go visit a local farm. Maybe you help out. Maybe you help with a harvest. But just like to really like, I don't know, highlight them because, they're doing incredible work. And I wish, and like, I wish we could support our local farmers more instead of buying like produce from Mexico, and I'm totally guilty of that. But like, just to kind of like normalize, like your local farmer, go buy your food from them kind of a thing.
Yeah, that's a really great idea. Yes, I'm definitely going to have to look around. I'm sure I have some local farmers that I buy from at my farmer's market that would love to do that, but I've never actually thought of that. So thank you for that idea.
Oh, you're welcome. We do like a CSA. And so we've known, it's John and Lorraine, we've known them for years, but we pick it up and then they let the kids like go harvest, or they'll teach them about tools, or they'll feed the chickens. And it's like, my kids love that. Like they don't care about, like, I don't want to go to a junk world. I want to go to John and Lorraine's for the weekend. And like, that's what I want to do.
Yeah. That's magical moments of childhood right there. Thank you for your time. I have enjoyed our conversation so much. I know it's going to be really beneficial to a lot of parents listening. So thank you for sharing your wisdom with us.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me on. I've loved chatting with you.
Thanks for listening to today's episode on the Daily Wellness Podcast. We hope that you found it helpful for your own wellness journey. And if so, we'd love for you to leave a review. Then come back and listen for review shoutouts on upcoming episodes. For more information, check out the show notes and connect with us on our website, dailywellnesscommunity.com.